is the DGD podcast. Go Dogs.
One Team Media.
Welcome to the DGD Podcast, the Georgia Bulldogs podcast for dogs.
From the gun again on first down. Fires wide. Juan Daniels, touchdown, Georgia.
This is your favorite receiver, Juan Daniels, and you're listening to the DGD Podcast with my man, Robert Reynolds. Go Dogs.
Welcome back to this episode of the DGD Podcast. As always, this is your host, the NCDGD himself, Robert Reynolds. Got a good show, and it's all NIL today, folks. All NIL. Look, if you're not familiar with anything in the recent news here, just keeping it Georgia alone. Look, JT Daniels in the news, Bryce Young in the news, and even Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama in the news. But first, before we start the show, guys, I just want to announce a partnership with La Touraine Watches. Use shop code DGD at checkout to save yourself 10% off site-wide. Look, if you want a luxury watch and not the luxury price tag, La Touraine is your way to go. So check out our guys. Tell them we sent you. Use the code and get 10% off of your purchase. That is site-wide. Anyways, first up, hey, Huw. We have Huw from 98 Strong, which if you're not familiar with that, you will by the end of this show. First off, Huw, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Hey, not a problem. So obviously to start the show, looking at these major names in NIL, right? JT Daniels with Zaxby's was a big thing for Georgia just recently.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know if you're familiar with this as well, but the autograph deal, $100 per autograph. There's some reports there that say that you could possibly see upwards of right at 7 figures for a 6-month contract. But one of the cool things about this that I thought was very cool, you don't really see a lot of this, and it speaks character, is he expected to or planned to share half of the earnings with his teammates. So for anybody thinking that NIL is a bad thing, look, there's some good things out there, right? So obviously with JT Daniels, you move on to yesterday, in my opinion, the perfect fit, guys. This is a Georgia podcast. I've said it from day one. But look, there is no better nickname, I should say, in college football than JaQuincy Kool-Aid McKinstry. And yesterday, a deal was finally done with Kool-Aid and partnering up with JaQuincy himself. Look, it was just meant to be. But I want to get your thoughts, Huw. What are some of the takeaways from these big big known names inking these NIL deals. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think it's awesome to see these athletes getting, paid when they should be. And it's, there was, concern. There always has been about athletes getting paid and, pay to play and stuff like that. But I think, with this, we're seeing that in the social media age, every college athlete can create a brand, and they can have 10,000 followers, 100,000, 500,000, a million followers, right? And so we're able to see them get brand partnerships, like you said, Kool-Aid with Kool-Aid. It's the perfect, partnership right there. So we're allowing these athletes to, while they continue to compete, really, monetize their NIL. And most athletes in the NCAA don't go pro. So they have 4 years, maybe 5 years. If you're, you take your time, it could be 6 years where you really have an opportunity to monetize yourself. And it's awesome to see. And especially, these bigger name guys are going to go to the NFL, but it's great to see that right now they're able to make some money. They can put that money back to their teammates, their communities, their families, and really help everybody else out around them.
Absolutely. I had a special guest a while back before NIL became a true legal thing, right? Before it became actually legal. And one of the key takeaways from this episode was, if as an athlete, right, from an athlete standpoint, if I'm an athlete, and if I look at another average, say just a regular person, right, on campus, they can go sit there and say stream a video game, or they can go sit there and and do whatever and get paid to do it. Why can't my athleticism and my athletic scholarship, why is that hindering me from going and using, and creating a source of revenue, an extra source of revenue, right? Because you take an athletic and an academic scholarship. Athletic scholarships, obviously, it's still the same thing if it's a full ride, right?
Yeah.
So, your room and board, things like that are paid for anybody that's never been to college. There's basic things that get paid on that scholarship. But then, they also get stipends if I'm not mistaken. So, there's a little bit right there. So I see the argument. People, they're already getting a little bit of extra money. But, putting myself into an athlete's shoes and really looking at it this way, if I'm the quarterback of Georgia, or I'm the quarterback of Texas, right? Texas is a huge brand. People want, the supply and demand tells me that my name is a hot commodity. Why can't I profit from that? If you know what I mean? So there's a lot of arguments that's been going on for years now. And really, honestly, my take on this is I thought the NCAA was just procrastinating so that they could try to figure out a way to get their cut. But obviously that's neither here nor there. That's just my personal opinion on that matter. But I'm with you here. I love the fact that kids can now sit here and go out and get these deals, and really learn a lot about the business side of professional sports, even while they're in college, right? Obviously, professional in college is taboo. I get it. But you're really learning some, real life lessons here that can translate to what you're going to be dealing with if you make it to the pros, right? Or, if you come from high school to college and you don't make it to the NFL. There's some life lessons here that you, like you said, you can make some money while you're on campus and do these things, and you have these opportunities now. Kids, why is it a problem for them to learn these life lessons? Hey, your tax returns are going to be key. Now you have to understand how to navigate these things. Yeah. There's so many life lessons that that have to be taught for these kids. And really, you look at each school, their compliance department, and really everybody creating a support system for these kids. I think it's honestly a necessity for these kids to have this, because you want these kids to succeed, right? Especially with something new like NIL and from a legal process.
Yeah, exactly. And like you were saying, some of these athletes are on full ride scholarships, and that's great. But I believe it's about less than 1% of all student athletes are on a full scholarship, which means there's hundreds of thousands of student athletes, which are still, maybe they get an academic scholarship or partial scholarship, financial aid, but there's still so many of them that they, maybe they don't come from a family that is, financially stable enough to pay their tuition and their housing and pay to get them food on the table. Because, we see it at these big time programs, Georgia, athletes are given food and stuff, like they're fed properly, but that's for like the football team and the basketball team. There's still, across the NCAA, there's athletes. When I played water polo in college, we didn't get anything. We got a protein bar and a protein shake after our lifts, and that was it. Whereas like you see some of these other guys, they have a cafeteria in their facility, and that's part of like just being an athlete. It's not part of their, school dining fee.
Yeah.
So it's great to see, that athletes are, able to make a little money so they can actually feed themselves properly and pay off some of their tuition or their student loans.
Absolutely. When I went to college, I went to college out of the military, and obviously my situation is a little bit different, but looking at it from a regular standpoint, the cost of tuition, even if you're staying in state, is still kind of pricey, and that's just a semester. But then you have your room and board if if you're staying on campus, right? If you're not, then obviously you travel, but you still have to eat. So either you get the meal plan that they offer, or you pay for your own food that way. But room and board and these meal plans, right, get pricey. And like you said right here, obviously you look at the football, and I think people get this assumption just based off of the high level things. They don't look deep into the roots here and see that, because you sit there, you see these football players at these elite programs. Hey, look, these guys are completely fed, so there's no need for them to have extra money for them to buy food. They got what they want. But like you said, you look at these other programs that's not, I wouldn't say it's money drivers, right? And then you start people don't listen to the underlying issues there. So, this NIL is really more of a blessing for everybody, because it creates a sense of parity in regards to having the opportunity to benefit from your name, image, and likeness, right? Because like you said, look, the meal plans are expensive, and that's just, if I'm not mistaken, that's a year. But nonetheless, it's like depending on where you go, it could be $1,000, $2,000 just on food alone. And that's just part of your fee for your tuition and things like that, so that you can stay on campus and enroll in classes. So, obviously I don't want to sit here and beat a dead horse for those that have attended college, but if you've attended college, you understand if you don't have a scholarship, just how much money it takes to function as, for outside of tuition alone. Yeah. So
especially if you're an out-of-state student, or if you're going to a school that's like a Duke University, or just any of these schools that are private institutions, it's insanely expensive. They can get up to $60,000 a year for tuition alone. On top of that, you have your housing and food. Yep, Duke Blue Devil, and textbooks and stuff like that. There's just simple things you need to be able to pay, and it's going into this NIL era. It's been the Wild West so far. There's such a, everybody's scrambling to get it figured out. We were kind of prepared for everything, but it exploded because, initially July 1st, when everything went legal, it was just going to be a few states. It was going to be like Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, and Florida. And then, the Supreme Court came in and got involved, and every student athlete. So at 98 Strong, like on July 1st, we started the day with 6 people signed up. We had 6 athletes signed up. And then, now we're approaching 800 athletes that are registered on our site that we're working to get deals for. And we have athletes from every walk of life all over the country. Every single sport is covered. We got equestrian, water polo, lacrosse, hockey, everything, football. We have players from, some of the big time programs that they're not the star on their team. So they might be an offensive lineman or, a third string wide receiver. We're able to give them opportunities that, a Bryce Young is getting, but they wouldn't necessarily get. So it's not going to be the same money. Bryce Young's making nearly $1 million. We're able to get these guys enough that at least they can pay some of their bills off and they'd be a little bit more comfortable, right? Like that's all it is. Like we want every athlete has value. That's our belief, because people see them around campus, in their community, back home, on social media. We're solely focused on Instagram right now, but we're in the future we'll probably expand TikTok, Twitter, all of that stuff, but it's Instagram right now. So these athletes, whether they have 1,000 followers or 10,000 followers, they have value. And it's, that was the concern with NIL at the beginning, was that it's only going to be the top athletes at Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia that are going to get deals. No, everybody can get a deal. I think like the Arkansas offensive line as a whole was sponsored by a tractor company. Those guys, some of them might go to the NFL. Most of them probably won't. Mm-hmm. But now they're all, making some money, and they're going to be a lot more comfortable.
Absolutely. Hey, so I want to talk more about 98 Strong, but first let me take a moment here to inform the audience here watching live. Look, if you're not familiar, the DGD podcast just expanded out. Obviously, most people are probably familiar with our YouTube channel, so we're live on YouTube as well, obviously, but we're still on other platforms like Twitch, and actually starting today, testing out the waters at Dailymotion. So make sure to subscribe, ring the bell if you're watching on YouTube, follow on Dailymotion. If you're not familiar with Twitch, I think you would like it as well. And obviously, for now, you can find us on Twitter as well. So obviously, now that has been said, Huw, I want to take a moment here to kind of get a familiarity with people that may not have known what 98 Strong was. Obviously doing a little bit of research prior to the show. I know the background about it. So, tell the audience about the background of what 98 Strong is about. I know you hit on it briefly, but maybe be just a little bit more detailed in what you provide athletes.
Yeah. So 98 Strong, we were founded by two former Division I water polo players. So they are 98%ers themselves. And 98% is in reference to there are 98% of collegiate athletes do not go pro after they finish their collegiate career, meaning, so they don't make money off of their athletic ability. So 98 Strong, when NIL, when the, rumbling started that things were going to be legal, Andrew Mavis and Nick Bunn, who are our two co-founders, kind of came up with the idea back in November. And then in April, they launched the platform to kind of get started knowing what was coming. And, our whole philosophy is helping that 98%. We're the 98 Strong. We're stronger together. I myself was a college water polo player, so I know, it's not glamorous most of the time. And you work hard, you're training a lot, you got classes, and, we really work hard to make sure that every athlete can, have an opportunity to monetize their NIL. So essentially what we do is we're just a platform that student athletes can sign up for at 98strong.com. It's a really simple process to sign up. At that point, we can start presenting you to potential sponsors and get deals. So rather than just, and it's athletes of any size following as well. We want to make sure that all athletes have an opportunity, whether you have 500 followers, 1,000, 10,000, 50,000, we're here to help everybody. And, college athletes are extremely valuable in their communities, like I said before. And so what we do, rather than just pitching companies, individual athletes, we group our athletes together. So we can put together a group of 15, 25, 50. And that way you have 50 athletes with a combined following of 75,000 followers, and they have better engagement rates than one influencer with 75,000 followers.
Creating a network, a nice little network for the partnerships and sponsorships and things like that. Okay.
So the companies that we were talking with and we've started doing partnerships with love the idea and are excited, and we're getting going with we got a bunch of deals coming up soon that we're going to announce. And again, it's the companies love it because it's a broader reach than just one, so they pay the same essentially that they would pay to one influencer for 50 micro influencers with a broader reach and much better engagement rates. And it's, it's not just the Instagram post as well. Like my thinking is, a lot of athletes, when they're, home for spring break or for the summer or Christmas, they go back to their old teams, or, they start training with some of the local kids so that they can, stay in shape at the local gym. And those guys will see, oh, he's using this brand, he's drinking this drink, and they'll be like, oh, if I want to be like him, I should, use that brand, drink that energy drink, whatever it is. So we're here to, as a platform, we're not an agency. We don't take any money from the athletes. There's no fee to sign up. We don't take a percentage of what they get. We get paid separately from the companies we work with, so that the athletes never have to worry about us taking anything from them. For us, it's all about the athletes and making it as easy and simple for them as possible as well.
Absolutely. I love what that is about, that mission. Obviously giving the kids, giving athletes an opportunity to, to make something out of it, right? Like, not everybody, I think a lot of people, are guilty of this, but, like I said, look at high level and see, these, well-known players, right, making millions of dollars, right? Like, obviously, like Quinn, you were basically, I don't know if you're familiar with this, basically foregoing senior year to do Ohio State. Let's be honest here. I think that was more for NIL than it was to learn the Ohio State playbook. We're not neither here nor there, just speculation.
Yeah.
But you look at the trajectory of how this has kind of blown up, and what you were saying as a Wild Wild West situation. I really think it falls under the NCAA for not establishing the guidelines, right? Set a true uniform protocol, and really just having the United States government take action for them to really do something. All of that tells me that the NCAA didn't want this, and now that the kids have their platforms, right? We talk about they have some exposure enough as it is, being a part of a team, things like that. And it wasn't just football players, right? Like you said, you played water polo, but there's more to it. There's more sports than football. My alma mater, UNCG, we don't even have a football program. We have a basketball program. And, so you have that right there. You have obviously baseball, things like that. Every athlete has a voice, and I'm glad to see them, make the stand up, and force the subject. And if it makes people uncomfortable, look, there's certain times in life where you're going to be uncomfortable. Things have to get done, and honestly, things that might not appease to you, right? Like, and I feel sorry. I kind of feel bad for athletes in the past where they didn't legally have this opportunity. Obviously you heard stories about Reggie Bush losing his Heisman, Todd Gurley getting set out for a few games, different things like that, right? Back in the day. And, that was just because, it was against the rules at the time. But, now that you have this kind of, type of platform, protocol, I hope gets set up somehow. You've got to figure out a way to make this uniform so that there can be some regulation. I would think, just a kind of piece to everybody. But, I'm so glad to see, every athlete, regardless of sport, have this opportunity. So there's no, I'm not trying to get too political here. There's no problem there's no questions about race or gender or whatever, right? Yeah. Everybody from every sport has the opportunity. And I'm really glad to have you on, because now, my audience and really whoever listens to this or watches this understands that, look, what you see at the high level isn't everything about NIL. Like you said, you bring it down to the roots, down below below the surface, and what you're doing to provide opportunities for kids that aren't well known. They're not in a revenue-driving sport like in football, right, or basketball at these big-time schools. So I'm glad that you came on and you're telling 98 Strong's mission. And really giving the opportunity to student athletes of all sports.
Yeah, we're just here to try and help everybody. And, like you were saying, it doesn't, the NCAA hasn't set a true standard protocol yet, or guidelines, I should say, for all, for NIL. So it is the Wild West still. Every school has their different rules and guidelines. Some schools are like, go out there, get your money. We don't care. Do whatever deals you have to do. Other schools are being a lot more strict about it. Can't use the school's, name, color. You can't do it on campus or in the athletic facilities. Can't have the school logo involved. And that I totally understand, because that's, where licensing and stuff gets in. And in my personal opinion, if you're an athlete, you should be wanting to make your money based off of your brand, your name, not your schools. And so I think what's going to happen in the future, kind of seeing where this all goes, is I believe schools may allow, or the NCAA may allow, students to use the logos and the colors, or do it on the field or at the stadium, but they'll take a licensing cut. So whether that's like something like 10, 15, 25%, I think that'll be something. And again, it's, in my personal opinion, I think the best thing these athletes can do is do it based on their own brand. This is their opportunity to start branding themselves, and opportunities like these, if they create them, a strong brand for themselves, and they work with these companies well, there will be opportunities after college as well. Mm-hmm. Right? We still see college athletes that didn't go pro, doing in sports media and coaching and stuff. And so, these athletes will have the ability to continue working with companies long after their athletic career. But for now, they have this opportunity to get started, and it's really, really cool. And I'm hoping that we really do see athletes after they graduate continue to be able to work with these brands and create a network that they can, either stay, grow as an influencer, grow as a micro influencer, or, go on to work for these companies, because these companies have worked with them for 4 years and respect them. So it's a really cool, the whole thing is going to be really cool. But until the NCAA guidelines are truly set, it's going to be chaotic, and it could actually affect in recruiting, because some schools are being more strict, some schools are being less strict. The schools that are being less strict will probably, get some recruits that are a little bit better, that are, interested in also monetizing their NIL.
Absolutely. Now, one of my questions here, from a 98 Strong standpoint, obviously, the main focus and the mission is to, give these opportunities and present them to student athletes. Is it, obviously, I think, in my opinion, I think that, while NIL is a very cool thing to have, I think, kids have to understand that that's not the main thing. You're in your position because you're playing a sport. Now, is that something that you have to kind of help athletes understand, or are you just solely to help? I think you look at their coaching staffs, things like that. Like, I really hope that their circles, their circles help them understand that. But as a company, are you there just for marketing, or are you more so, trying to guidance as well?
So right now we're mostly marketing, but compliance is our number one priority with all of these athletes. Is, we cannot take a risk that an athlete's eligibility would be at risk. So we make sure on our end that all of our deals are safe, eligibility wise, with the NCAA. And along with that, when we do have an opportunity for an athlete, we send them a 1-pager that they will then submit to their school's compliance officer. Some schools are, using different automated systems to do it. And some schools are even providing their student athletes with education on their finances, building their brands, and stuff like that. And so that's not our avenue right now. It may be an avenue we go down in the future to help these athletes make sure that they're protecting their brand and building themselves the right way. Right now, it's just marketing. But, like I said, eligibility is number one. It's key to us. We can, that's not a risk that you can put an athlete in. It's as simple as that. And there's already been, some issues, like, Barstool Sports. They started their Barstool Athletes program without really kind of setting up the research for it. And we're seeing, I think it was Louisville University. They told their athletes, if you have an affiliation with Barstool, you need to cut it short because they're associated with gambling. And in the NCAA's temporary guidelines,
Barstool betting,
you cannot have involvement with any gambling. So there's been a pretty consistent, constant with all of this, with the schools and with the NCAA guidelines, that the temporary guidelines, that you can't do anything gambling, tobacco, weed, obviously, anything alcohol. There's maybe one or two other things that I'm missing right off the top of my head. But you cannot miss school or an athletic event, whether it be a practice, a game, or anything. You cannot miss anything that is like a mandatory thing because you're working on a deal. So that's been pretty much the constant. And again, we kind of leave that to, we want the athletes to have, they are responsible for making sure that they're not doing something like that. We make sure we give them the guidelines for what they, need to do when it comes to a branded Instagram post. And we make sure that they are getting cleared by their school and that they're clear with the NCAA.
Nice. I know.
Yeah.
Like you said, you always have to worry about those things, right? The downfall to NIL. So it's good that 98 Strong kind of has that kind of safe, cautious approach, to make sure all the kids are safe when it comes to this and going through those rules and protocols. Now with NIL, obviously high school athletes, right? I try to promote high school athletes that's local to me. One of the things about NIL, it doesn't apply to high school athletes currently. Now, when they graduate high school, what's the threshold for a high school athlete transitioning into a college? I'm not entirely sure about this, so this is going to be for me really to get that understanding. What's that threshold there for someone to jump in if they were to try to join 98 Strong? Is it as soon as they sign to go to college, or what's that threshold? I guess maybe is a question to answer.
Yeah. So right now, as we're not like an exclusive agency or we don't charge our athletes anything, athletes can sign up at any point they want. And obviously we're going to make sure that whatever they do, they're eligible with their school. So if they graduate high school, beginning of June, and we have an opportunity for them, July 10th, let's say, we'll make sure they still submit it to their school's compliance officer to make sure that they are okay. Again, I don't know what that exact threshold is. Is it may be the first day they're on campus for for preseason or for classes, but it also may be, as soon as they graduate high school, they're technically not a high schooler anymore. Right. Yeah. And I'm sure at that point they have their, Georgia.edu email address. So that is, that's not an issue we've come across just yet, especially, because everything started July 1st. And then, the first deals didn't roll out until like mid-July, late July. And those those were more like deals with people that we had more like connections with, that we could, it was easier. They were established college athletes that we were able to get deals with. So that's not really a bridge we've crossed yet. I know we've had some kids that are like, hey, I'm a commit. Can I sign up? And we say, yeah, you can sign up, but we may not be able to get you a deal yet. And, NIL, it's like you said, it's not clear with high schoolers how that's going to be, because in the past you couldn't make money as a high schooler and then go into college, based on your image. But that may change now, as long as, it's not pay to play. It's not, professional sports. And on a technical basis, high schoolers shouldn't have their eligibility impacted. But that's, again, it's a bridge that we'll cross when we get there. And I think it's one that's going to get here really quickly, because especially like thinking about high school basketball, these players are already, superstars before they get to college. Zion,
some of them even middle school.
Yeah.
I know the name, but Bronny, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bronny was known before he even started really playing. Like he was in middle school, and you look at the Ball brothers. Like I think that's where you have to be really careful. And so I understand the football, right? Because football is your revenue driver. But like all it takes, like Zion was a freshman, and he was already gracing SI covers.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's where maybe that's just me, but I feel like that's where the line you have to really be careful. Because not only do you have the one and done, you have to look at different sports and their different rules. So like, what used to be, I don't know if you remember this, but used to be kids could go straight out of high school and go straight to the NBA. Obviously now they do the one and done, but now you're starting to see G League, right? Like kids go, like the elite kids will go up and they'll just commit to a G League team and not go to a college whatsoever. So basketball is the true Wild West right now. Football compared to basketball in my eyes, that's like a small town compared to the Atlanta city. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And some of these athletes we've seen, going abroad, LaMelo Ball and RJ Hampton played in Australia and
kids
so
go
it's
overseas and play professionally. Yeah.
exactly
Just for the year, just so they can go.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it affects the one and done, because obviously now these athletes, these superstar high school athletes, maybe they decide because they can make money, they do 2 years in college so that they can develop a little bit more before going into the NBA.
It definitely poses a business decision. Obviously, look, I typically stick football here, but just talking about basketball, just imagine hypothetically if Zion Wilson, in his 1 year, right, was dealing through NIL right now. The money that he's making, I guarantee the money that he would make back then probably was more than enough to sit here and maybe sit him in another year just to sit there, because he's the next coming of God in the college basketball. Everybody's known him since middle school. Like I said, there's so much about it. Like I guarantee the money he would have made, maybe that is something that draws these kids to college, things like that. But I think nonetheless, it would pose a business decision for those kids to make, especially in basketball.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember like Zion Williamson had that one game where he busted through his shoe and Nike's stock.
Carolina game.
Nike stock the next day like dropped because it was all over like that. He was having that much of a financial impact at that point that he, took one of the world's biggest companies and made their stock drop. So it's insane to see.
Even inadvertently, because I was watching that game, it was so fast into the game and he didn't come back. But like you said, you saw Nike take a hit impact, from a financial standpoint. That was a huge hit. So that tells you right there that Zion had some eyes on him. I'm just going to say that right there, because of the timing, right? Like the timing alone, like accidents happen, which is exactly what happened. But the impact of these kids, man, just something like you just brought up, like just shows you the scope of how powerful these kids can be and how, you know what I mean? Like it's insane to think about it.
Yeah. And that's even down to, we're talking about Zion Williamson and his impact. That market value and that impact still goes down to the micro influencers and those, if you have hundreds of college athletes coming out and they're talking about how they don't like a certain brand or something like that, or how they prefer this brand, that market value is there and they're going to impact those companies in a positive or a negative way if, depending on how things go. So absolutely. It's, the power of the college athlete has never been stronger. And I hope the NCAA doesn't do anything to screw this up. I hope they just try and keep their hands off of it and let these athletes kind of do their thing, make their money their own way. And just kind of say like, hey, don't use your school's branding or something like that, essentially. And, don't work with alcohol and tobacco and weed gambling companies. Just, keep it simple. Don't get your hands involved, because that's where things are going to get messy. That's when you start to lose people again. You start gaining some of these fans back. College athletes are happy now. As long as you're making sure the athletes are performing still and they're not, focused on making money, which is, our whole thing is keeping it simple for the athletes so that they can focus on school and their sport. Yep. That's the most important thing. So it's truly an incredible time to see that for these athletes. I wish this was around when I was an athlete. I didn't have a lot of followers, but with something like 98 Strong, I could have at least made a little bit of money so that I could, buy myself a dinner on a Friday night, not have to just go to the dining hall or, be hungry.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you look at sometimes and look at it this way, NIL, might not even be financially appealing to some people. And I'm not saying that it won't, but, like, for instance, there could be a kid that I'm not saying that this is the case because I really just don't know. Maybe this kid doesn't even care about the money. If it comes, it comes. But look, I just want to grow my name out, get my name out there. So I'll go through 98 Strong. I'm going to get my name out there, grow some exposure. Somebody's bound to see me. And if my exposure, things can come.
Exactly.
So, there's more than just money about NIL.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be all finances. While most people are going to look at it the way 99.9% of people are looking at it from a money standpoint, and rightfully so. But there's always that 0.1% of people using NIL and its rules and regulations, well, lack thereof, but you get what I mean. For other gain, right? It's exposure. Okay.
Yeah.
People might not know me here, right? But I'm an athlete at South Alabama, on their tennis team, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you sit there, you start networking with kids from other schools. Next thing you know, you're sitting there building your exposure to other people. So you're branching out and you don't even realize it.
Exactly.
So, that's another thing. I think, kids, I understand, like, you're already on a spectrum, like on a pedestal anyway, in the sense of people looking at you, right? Especially the big names. But from a small group, like you said, 98 Strong, you build together and then you branch out. And a lot of people, the concept is just logical to me. And I hope that everybody listening and watching, it makes sense to as well, because you're right. You're stronger together.
Yep. That's our tagline. 98% stronger together. It's and like you said, there's going to be kids that are smarter, or smarter thinking about all of this when it comes to how they utilize this. Some of them will really use it to, they don't necessarily need the money or care about the money. But they can, use this as an opportunity to network with a brand and, grow a close connection. So that way, when they graduate, it's like, hey, I just graduated. I studied marketing. I would love to come and work with you guys, in this aspect of things. And along with that, we have an initiative called 98 Agents or 98 Managers. We're still figuring out the name. Yep. But essentially what it is it's an opportunity for any college student to be a sort of a middleman representative for their school. So we have guys at Harvard and Michigan already set up, and we're getting more signed up. And essentially what they'll do is they'll talk to athletes, get athletes signed up, talk to local businesses, get deals on a local level as well, because that's, what we want to be able to do as well, is work with these companies that want to work nationally, but also find these deals for these kids with their local pizza place so that they can get some free food, and a little discount. And so these 98 Agents it's a really cool opportunity, in my opinion, that, you can get into the sports marketing world, sports business as a college student, gain some experience, network with the athletes on your campus and the local businesses. And, and athletes are able to do it. And it's, again, it's this whole thing. There's ways for athletes to succeed. They don't have to make thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. They can build themselves up as a brand, or, network really, really well and find opportunities that'll last them a lifetime.
Absolutely. And I'm going to point back to a couple of things here. Mm-hmm. There's some key words that we've been discussing here for the last several minutes that I really want to drive home to whoever's listening. If you have kids going through school with the potential of being an athlete and, at the next level, or if you're listening, and you're a top tier player in high school or even a college athlete right now, there's a couple words that I want to drive home: sports marketing, networking, which I think is probably the most important, but I don't know why I did it second. But also understand the economics of sports, right? And what I mean by that is, just because you hear economics, it doesn't mean money all the time. As an economics major myself, there's a lot of things that go on to making decisions and the impacts of each decision that you make. Look at choosing to network with other kids from different universities. What impact does that have? What could it have on your athletic career? What could it have on your personal career? There's a lot of these things right here that's not just sports related. They are sports related, but it's not particularly X's and O's, things like that, right? At the end of the day, you have to take care of yourself. And one of the best ways to do it is take advantage of the opportunity you've been given. First off, focus on your sport. Focus on academics and focus on your sport. Staying eligible, right, to be able to compete in these sports is the main thing, because without it, you probably wouldn't be in the situation you are right now. Second off, focus on life after sports, because let's be honest, Father Time always wins, and I haven't seen him ever getting beat yet. I'm starting to really wonder with Tom Brady, to be honest. I really am. But nonetheless, up to this point, I don't see Father Time losing one yet. So understand that. Understand and think critical. Use some critical thinking here. Another key word. Plan out your life, and 98 Strong is going to be there for you to do that. Not only to sit there and, get a deal, right? It's cool, you get a deal, but they're also there to sit there and network with other athletes from all across the country and grow your brand and sit there and set yourself up for the long haul. Because ultimately, as somebody that's getting close to, up there in age, be honest, it's important to sit there and make sure you're set for the long haul. So I know that sounds like a little bit of a rant, but if you're listening and you have kids or you're an athlete yourself, please do yourself a favor and think a little bit about that. If you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. I'm just throwing it out there for you to sit there and learn about it. But Huw, look, man, I've had a blast talking NIL. I think, the perception from the get-go has kind of been off about this. Recently seeing like JT, like I said at the beginning of the show, JT planning to sit there and take and split half between his teammates. Just one example of the good things that could come out of NIL. Obviously, you sit there, you want fairness, you want equity, you want, parity, right? And what you're providing along with the countless others, giving these kids opportunities, giving them kids a platform to grow and have some financial freedom there, right? In the grand scheme of things, it's beneficial for the sport, even though, you can definitely hear the argument that it's turning into a professional sport. This is where the regulation comes in that we talked about in the middle of the show. Doing it the right way, setting the regulations up the right way, enforcing those regulations the right way, if done properly, can be a beneficial, really proponent of college sports moving forward if done correctly. So look, I just wanted to say thank you again for coming on the show. If you ever interested, if anybody's listening as an athlete or anything like that, check out 98strong.com and find out more about the organization and what they're about. If you don't feel like listening to it, maybe you can sign up and start helping yourself out. Obviously, Huw here has discussed these limitations potentially. But, other than that, Huw, where can people find you? Obviously, just let people know. Obviously, 98 Strong, I'll just spit that out for you. But where can people find you?
98strong.com. You can sign up if you're an athlete or if you're a college student and you're looking into, if you want to try and apply to be a 98 agent, you can apply there as well. We're on Twitter and Instagram at 98strong_. That's that, our Instagram is our strongest platform right now when it comes to being connected with athletes, but our Twitter's growing. We're getting there. And we're also on Facebook, and that's just 98 Strong. Again, thank you for having me on. And it's awesome to see all of these athletes getting deals. And we're hoping that we can really help all of our athletes get deals. Our goal right now is by Christmas, we want to make sure every single kid who's signed up for our platform has gotten a deal. It looks like we're going to be able to do that, probably sooner than Christmas. So we're really excited about that. And again, we're here to help everybody, all these athletes out. We're the 98%. We're stronger together.
Absolutely. Hey, look, like I said, I love hearing about 98 Strong. I'm going to do my part and be more of an advocate for it as well. Looking at kids that aren't going to be these top 10 players, top 100 players, whatever, that's okay. You can still have the opportunity. 98 Strong is going to be there for you to make sure that you get those opportunities. So, hey, look, like I said, it was a blast having you on. Look, the DGD podcast, you're welcome here anytime. Definitely keeping up with NIL, main things in the season, things like that. So my pleasure having you on, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Great. Thank you very much.
Not a problem. All right, guys, that is all we have for today. Look, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. Obviously, if you watched on YouTube, Daily Motion, Twitch, look, wherever you get your podcasts, I appreciate you for all the support. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, ring the bell, Daily Motion, follow, Twitch, subscribe, follow, obviously rate us on Apple Podcasts, right? Give us a review, 5 stars preferred. On that note though, guys, have a great day and go Dogs.